terms of slope and equation line. The other part then deals with parallel and equivalent. So first off, parallel lines. What is true about parallel lines?
They have the same slope.
They don't intersect. And why don't they intersect?
Same slope.
Because they have the same slope. Okay? So parallel lines have the same slope. Okay? So for example, if I draw a graph, I got my red line, looks like that. I draw another line that looks something like that. Give or take my drawing ability, those lines are parallel. Okay? They have the same slope. Okay? So we get to a question then that looks like this. Determine the equation line of the line that is parallel to y equals minus 2x plus 3 and passes through the point five. So I want the equation line that is parallel to that given line and passes through that point. So first off, what is the slope of my given line? -2. So what does the slope of the parallel line have to be? -2. Right. So my slope of my parallel line has to be -2. Well, here's the slope. Here's a point. Plug it into point slope form. So we get y minus 12 equals a minus 2 x minus 5. Take that equation, solve for y. Now that's just algebra. So this is going to be y minus 12 equals a minus 2x plus 10. Add 12. Add 12. Y equals minus 2x plus 22.
That y minus 12, is that point slope?
This
Equation? Yeah.
That is point slope.
Okay.
And then I rearranged it into slope intercept. Parallel lines have the same slope. Yes.
We're going to be having like parallel lines in the quizzes tomorrow or next week.
Yes.
So like, if I'm looking at it, if it's just a y equals mx plus b equation, we're looking for something parallel to that. But wouldn't it be pretty simple to look at it? If I wanted to pass through 512, I know it's going to pass through 512. That's 5 into the x, and it's 12 up. And I know that 5 back to get to that point is going to be -2. 5 times -2 is 10. I just add 10 to that 12, and I know the y-intercept is going to be 0.2. And I just add that instead of the. I mean, I feel like that would be way quicker. But would you want us to show that work in that quiz next week?
Okay, what if I gave you y equals 5/7 x?
Yeah, I can't do that in my head.
There you go. Okay? nice with whole numbers, right?
Yeah.
Fractions, a little bit different, right? So I'll make sure I give you fractions in your quiz.
Thank you.
Alright. Okay. So the process really isn't any different than what we've already done, except for, it's parallel lines. So if I give you a slope, the new line has to have the same slope. What about perpendicular lines? What's true?
Intersecting at 90 degrees.
They don't have the same slope. That is true, right? So you think about perpendicular lines and what they look like, right? So let's draw a little graph of perpendicular lines. So we got my axis. So let's draw my first line, which is going to look something like that. If I want a line that's perpendicular to that, what would I draw? Yes. So it's going to have the opposite slope, right? And yeah, where it crosses to form a right angle, right? So you end up with something like that. Right? So for perpendicular lines, okay, so for perpendicular lines, the slopes is the negative reciprocal. Right? So now you're going to have to deal with fractions, one way or the other. So, for example, I want to find the equation of the line that is perpendicular to y equals 4x minus 7 and passes through the point to 5.
So what does that say? Like, find the equation of the line that is
Perpendicular.
okay.
Okay, that's a symbol for perpendicular, right?
Okay.
That's a symbol for perpendicular. Unless you want to write out perpendicular.
What does that say right next to it?
2. Line that is perpendicular to y equals. All right. So what is the slope of my given line?
4.
4. So what is the slope of the perpendicular line going to be?
Negative.
-1/4. Okay. So my slope of my perpendicular line will be -1/4. Okay. So if a given slope was positive, the perpendicular will be negative. If the given slope was negative, the perpendicular line has to have a positive, negative reciprocals, right?
So how come it couldn't be -4?
Reciprocal.
Oh, yep.
After all, that's 4/1, right?
Gotcha.
So reciprocal. Any whole number can be written as a fraction by putting it over 1. So you get 4/1. Reciprocal means take that number and flip it. So you get 1/4. Okay? Right? So again, now it's the same process. Here's my slope. Here's my point. All the information. Y minus 5 equals a -1/4 x minus 2. Okay. Then comes your algebra skills and your fraction skills. solve that equation for y.
I talked about this with the math teacher that I had back at Everett, that a lot of the problems that are used for teaching are designed to come out with nice whole number answers, but that creates a problem because once people try to actually apply this to real world numbers, it never comes out to that, so they feel like they're doing something wrong, except that they're not, and that the teaching should include as little as possible
Special cases.
Yeah, that come out with whole numbers, and it should be mostly just huge ugly numbers, because that's really what you're looking at. So, which I thought was a really interesting discussion.
So you should be able to take that and solve it for y. So the first thing I do is my distributive property. So we get y minus 5 minus 1/4 x, and then plus 1/2.
How did you get?
I got negative 1/4 times negative 2, right? Which would be a negative 2, which will end up being a negative times a negative makes it a positive. So you end up with 2 over 4, which can be reduced to 1/2. Right? Next step is to bring the 5 over. Opposite of subtracting is to add. Add 5. Add 5.
4/2. Negative 4/2. Do you have a mixed number?
For that number, yeah, you could.
Negative 4/2.
No,
11 over 2.
11 over 2. If I did it in terms of an improper.
I did 5.5.
Or 5.5. You could do it that way for that number.
Because
Generally, slopes, again, slopes you would not write as a mixed number. Okay?
Yeah, but that's the intercept.
Right, and I said that you could do. Yeah. Okay? So this will become y equals, now again, you go through your process of fractions, and the rule for fractions is that in order to have fractions, you have to have a common denominator. What's the common denominator?
2.
2. So 5 will become 10 over 2. So 1/2 plus 10/2 will be 11/2. Okay? Now in the case of this one, yeah, you could write it as 5.5 for that part.
Wouldn't you want to write 5.5? Because if you have that, you've got to go backwards to figure out what that is to find out where your y-intercept actually. Like you have to. I can't think of a term to make it back into that.
Change it into
5.5.
Yeah, that's not. What do you? So, given information, you should be able to determine the equation of a parallel line. You should be able to determine the equation of a perpendicular. Right? Other things is you get to everybody's favorite thing in math, which are word problems. Right? Everybody loves word problems, right? So you get something like this. So first off, what would be the equation for this? So what would be my equation that represents what's going on here? So, phone company charges $15 and then 11 cents per minute for your phone calls. So what would be the equation that'll tell you how much your bill's going to be?
11x plus 15.
11x plus 15? Okay. So we got one example. Now the cost is going to be 11x plus 15, is what he said.
0.11x?
All right.
It's cents, so not dollars.
Right, it's 11 cents, right?
Alright.
So, yeah. You hopefully they're not charging you $11 per minute. Be a little steep, right? So it should be 0.11x, right? 11 cents per minute, right? So that would be the equation, and then once you know the equation, if I said, okay, how much is the bill if so how much is the bill if you talk over 20 minutes? So now what you do is you take your equation, where you see the x, you would now plug in the 20, right? So y, or cost, is going to be 0.11 times 20 plus 15. So the cost here ends up being what? 17.20. Okay. Okay. So something like that. Okay. So word problems. You come up with the equation that goes along with the situation, and then once you have the equation, you can then plug in the number and get the value. Okay. All right. Other things you should be able to do in terms of the homework for this week. Other stuff they give you in terms of the homework stuff is they do give you something like this, where they give you this chart. So let's say this is x, this is f of x. Let's do 1, 2, 3. So you have questions where they give you a chart like that, and they want to know what is the equation of the line that goes with that chart. Well, Bailey is really not any different than what I gave you in class. You Bailey, in this case, instead of having 2 points, you have 3 points or 4 points, depending on what they give you. But Bailey, you do the same thing. You could, based on the information, find the slope. Once you got the slope, pick a point, and then get the equation of the line. Okay? So here, I can take the first 2 points, find my slope. N is going to be 9 minus 6 over 2 minus 1. Well, that comes out easily enough. That's 3. That's my slope. Pick a point. After that's right. You got 3 points there. You can pick whatever one you want. So y minus 6 equals 3. X minus 1. Remember, f of x is your y value, or h of x, or k of x, or whatever it is. And then everybody should be able to take that and rearrange it into the other form. Okay? So you do have something like that in terms of some of the homework. Word problems, you do have some of those. Again, given the words, from the words come up with the equation that goes with the information. Okay? So in order for lines to be parallel, they must have the same slope. In order for the lines to be perpendicular, they must be negative reciprocals of each other. So you have a question in the homework where they want you to find the slope of the first line, find the slope of the second line, and then decide are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So if they have the same slope, they're parallel. If they're negative reciprocals, they're perpendicular. If they're neither one of those cases, then it's neither. In terms of that. Other things. So let's say I have this.
So what was the answer to that one?
Well, again, once you know what the slopes are, you just compare them. If they have the same slope, then the two lines are parallel. If the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, they're perpendicular. If it's neither one, then it's neither. Okay? Okay. So example, in terms of this one, if I have any slope intercept form, are those two lines parallel? No. Are they perpendicular? No. They're neither, right? They don't have the same slope. They are not negative reciprocal of each other. Okay. So given that they're not parallel, we know at some point, wherever that point may be, we know they're going to cross, right? At some point, these two lines will cross each other. Where does it happen? Well, where it happens is when these two are equal to each other, right? So these two lines will cross at some point. Wherever that might be. Now, one way of finding that out would be to get out a nice piece of graph paper, you graph it out nicely, and you could find out where the two lines actually intersect, right? That would be the answer, where the two lines cross. The other way is to do it algebraically. So when the two lines cross, this has to equal this. So 2x plus 3 will have to equal x minus 5 when they cross. Because after all, they both have to equal the same y number, right, when they cross? And so I could solve that equation for x. That's easy enough. So I want to get the x's on one side. Subtract x. Subtract x. So we get x plus 3 equals a minus 5. Next step, take the 3 over. And we get x will be negative 8. So if x is negative 8, what's the y going to be? Yep, go back to either one of the original two. Plug in negative 8. And no matter which one you plug in, you get the same number. The y value will be negative 13. Okay? So that is where they intersect. Negative 8, negative 13 in this case.
But where did you get the negative 13 again?
I just take my negative x and plug it into my equation.
Oh, gotcha.
This is my x number. So I can take that number and plug it in either here or there. It doesn't matter which one I pick. They both give me the same answer. Okay? So I know the point where they intersect. Okay? And you have something like that in your homework, where they want to know where do the lines intersect. Okay? Any question on all that? No? All right. Well, then with that, there is one last thing for today. Woo! And this thing. But again, it is open book, it is open notes. You can talk to your neighbor. Whether or not your neighbor wants to talk to you may be a whole different issue. You will turn this in before you leave. I will tell you if you got it right or wrong.
Don't want it.
You got it wrong, you just go back, make corrections. If you get it right, you get to go home.
At least it's
Can you only talk to your neighbors, or can you consult the whole neighborhood?
You can consult the whole neighborhood if you want.
There we go.
For this, yes, it is teamwork. Okay. Yeah. Right. So for today, on to chapter 2. So again, a bit more review of stuff. So today deals with linear equations. And so equation of a line, and the equation of a line comes in various forms. General form, point slope form, slope intercept form. That would deal with the equation of a line, and then we're also dealing with that. We have to deal with slope. And then in regards to lines, we can talk in regard, are they parallel? Or are they perpendicular? Okay. So those are the things we'll be doing today. So we had in terms of last week and also in terms of today's quiz where we talked about rate of change. You had a question on the quiz dealing with rate of change. And we said rate of change basically is slope, is what rate of change is. Okay. So in terms of slope, slope is given to be the rise over run, or delta y over delta x. So what does this symbol mean in terms of math?
Change y.
Change in, right? So in terms of the equation, this means y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, that's barely the same thing we saw last week in terms of finding rate of change. it's the same thing. So, given 2 points, we can find the slope. Right? So, if you think in terms of slope, you think about that in terms of like the roof on your house. Slope. You think in terms of stairs going up and down. You also think in terms of when you're out driving, and you come to those signs that tell you whether it's a 6%, 10% grade, going up or downhill. Okay? Okay. So you have in terms of slope. So given 2 points then, so for example, if I say find the slope, and I have the point 7, 8, and then 12, 17. Well, I know there's over the line that connects those two. Well, so for the sake of argument, let's call this x1, y1. We'll call this the point x2, y2. And then I'm going to just take those 4 numbers and plug them into my equation. So my slope is going to be 17 minus 8 over 12 minus 7. 17 minus 8 is 9. And 12 minus 7 is 5. There's my slope. Right?
So if you're talking in terms of rise overrun, it's up 9 for every 5 to the
Yeah.
right.
So up 9 over 5. Okay. Generally, slope for something like this would be left in terms of an improper fraction. Okay? You would not turn it into a mixed number. If it came out to be something like 6 over 2, then yeah, that we would just write as 3. Okay? But if it's something like this, we leave it in terms of improper. Okay. All right. So then, given this set of points, everybody take a moment and come up with the slope for that set of points. We got a number?
I have 17 over 2.
All right.
Negative 17 over 2.
I have 7 over 2.
Yeah, negative 7 over
Negative 7 over 2.
2. Yeah, 17.
I have 7 over 2.
You got 17?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. All right. Okay.
I got
Maybe I...
You got what?
negative 10.
Negative 10.
I have 7.
Negative 7 over negative 2. Yeah.
Negative 7 over negative 2.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I got.
But a negative over a negative is a positive, right? So again, if I take the numbers, call this x1, y1, x2, x2, y2, right? And again, plug those in. We get minus 9 minus the minus 2 over 1 minus 3. So minus 9 minus a minus 2 is negative 7, right? Minus 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And then again, a negative over a negative is a positive. Okay? So you should end up with 7 halves. Once more. What is the slope for that thing?
Three.
And the slope is?
Three.
Three over 0.
3 over 0, which is?
3.
No!
0.
No!
Undefined.
1.
Undefined.
Undefined.
You cannot divide by 0. Okay? This one would be undefined. Okay? Alright? So, after all, this one is going to be 15 minus 12 over 8 minus 8, which is going to be 3 over 0, which if you plug into the toy or the app, you ought to get an error.
Indeed.
Because it cannot be done.
This is like the quiz one, or the homework one that you were doing. Once you see 8 minus 8, you don't even have to figure out 15 minus 12 anymore.
Okay. So this is undefined. Cannot be done. Okay? All right. So now in terms of slope of a line, okay, there really are 4 possibles. Okay? So you have my axis. So first kind of slope would be a positive slope. So a positive slope would be something like that. This is a positive slope, right? And now if you go from left to right, you're going uphill, right? Next type, then, would be the opposite. So that would have a negative slope. So positive slope, negative slope. Okay. The third type, then, would be one that looks like that. Okay. And so this one has no slope or 0 slope. Okay. And so this one is the kind of thing you do not want to see on your EKG. Okay. And then the last one which is what that one we just did before, right before I did this. The last kind of slope then is given a line that looks like that. This one is undefined or infinite slope. Okay. So in terms of a line, it can have any one of those four possibilities. Positive, negative, no slope, undefined, infinite slope. There. Okay. So in terms of this type, okay, if it is something like this, my equation is only going to be in the form of y equals something. Okay? Y equals 5. Okay? If it's in this form, it'll be in the form of x equals some number, whatever that may be. So let's put those numbers over there, actually. Okay? Y equals 3. Straight line, going across, 3 units above. X equals 5. Go over 5 units, straight up and down. Okay? Yeah. Any question on that part? But in terms of an equation of a line, there are 3 forms. General form, AX plus BY equals C, which doesn't tell you much information, but it is a way of writing an equation of a line. The next type is point slope form. And so that one is y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. When the equation is in this form, we have that the m is the slope. And then x1, y1, that is the point. Okay.
That's MI.
No,
MI slope?
no, that's not an I. It's not.
Oh,
Cool.
gotcha.
Okay? Right? And then the last form, which is one that is probably everybody's seen before and are used to seeing, and that is the good old slope-intercept form. And that equation is in this. And that equation is y equals mx plus b. And that's probably the most common way you see an equation of a line. Y equals mx plus b. So when the equation is in this form, again, m will be the slope. Okay. M is the slope, and b is the y intercept. Okay. So you should be able to write an equation of a line in any of those 3 forms. Right? out of those three, general form is the most useless. Oh, good.
Make a note.
Okay. The most useful is slope intercept. And then point slope is in between. In turn. Right. So you get to do something like this. Okay. Again, remember all this is online, right? The notes go there, the video goes there. Okay. So given something like this. Find the equation of the line. Equation of the line that passes through the points So I want to find the equation line that passes through these 2 points, and let's find it in both point slope and slope intercept form. Okay? I'm going to find the equation in those 2. Well, in order to get the equation of the line in either one of these forms, the first thing I need to know is what is the slope given the set of points. So we've done that. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Okay. I plug that in and I get my equation, my slope. And so we got M is going to be minus 2 minus 7 over 0 minus 3. Minus 2 minus 7? Negative 9. 0 minus 3. And this becomes 3. That's my slope. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to first get the equation in this form, and then I'm going to get the equation in this form, right? Well, I know this is the slope. I know that this point is on the line. I also know that that point is on the line. After all, I got 2 points that we were given, okay? So we're going to take one. So for the sake of argument, let's take the point 3, 7. And I'm going to find point slope form. This is my M. This is my X1. This is my Y1. Right? So we had, in terms of point slope form, we said it was y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. So I'm going to take these 3 numbers, plug them into these 3 places. So we end up with y minus 7 equals 3 x minus 3. That's it. We have the equation in point slope form. Okay. Next part. I now want to get this in slope intercept form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this equation here and we're going to solve it for y. And that'll give me in the other form. Okay. So now, let's do this down a little So we had y minus 7 equals 3x minus 3. First thing I'm going to do is take care of my distributive property. So y minus 7 equals 3x minus 9. And the last step is to take the 7 and bring it over to the other side. Opposite of subtracting is to add.
Confused. How did you get minus 9?
Well, 3 times x is 3x. 3 times a minus 3, right? And so we're going to add 7. So plus 7, and we get y equals and so now we have the equation in slope intercept. So I can go from one form to the other.
So slope intercept to just solving it, basically, like what you get.
Yeah, so 2 would be B, right?
So the B, so now in this case, my slope is 3, my y-intercept is negative 2. Okay? All right? This is the slope. This is the y-intercept. Okay? So when you have a slope-intercept form, by given the equation in that form, you can just look at the equation, you can say what is the slope and what's the y-intercept. Okay? So, for example, given y equals 2 x plus 3, what's the slope?
2 or 5.
2/5. What's the y-intercept?
3.
3, right? M is 2/5, B is 3. Y equals minus 7x. What's the slope? -7. What's the y-intercept? 0. Okay? After all, there's no number there, right? Okay? Let's see. Y equals 9. What is the slope?
9.
No. 0. What's the y-intercept? 9. Okay? After all, how many x's do you see here? None. Slope is 0. Okay? After all, I don't have to write the equation where I write out y equals 0x plus 9, right? We don't need to write that. Because after all, 0x is 0. So I don't write it down there, but the slope is 0. Okay? Alright. In terms of a line, what if I want to graph that? How would I graph it?
Just start the -4 on your y-axis, and go up to over 1,
Okay.
and plot that point.
Right. So you got a couple of choices how to do it, okay? So one my key mention of how to graph this is I could start out by making use of the fact that I know what slope is, I know what y-intercept is, and how that all works. Now, like he said, is you start out by plotting the y-intercept, which is -4. So let's plot it. That's down there. The slope is a +2, which means go up 2 and go over 1.
Why would you just go with 1?
Because slope is rise over run, right? And so 2 means 2 over 1, right? Is what that means, right? And it's positive, so that means go up 2 and over 1. Okay? As far as that, right? Now, if you don't like this way, we'll talk about the other way in a moment. Okay? So, how many points does it take to determine a line?
2.
2. I got my 2 points. The next thing you do is just connect the dots. There we go. So you can do it by making use of the intercept and the slope. Okay? If you don't like that way, we can do the same thing. Again, it only takes 2 points to determine a line, right? So let's make a little chart. Pick 2 numbers for x. Give me 2 numbers for x.
4 and 6.
Okay, well, all right. The only problem is the numbers you pick, you actually got to put on the graph.
So,
2 and 3. All right, let's go 2 and 3. A little bit better. All right. So if x is 2, what's 2 times 2? What's 4 minus 4? 0. There we go. What is 2 times 3? 6 minus 4 is 2. So now I have 2 points. I can plot those 2 points on the graph. So over 2 of 0, that's there. Over 3 of 2 is there. Now connect the dots. And we get that.
So the first way, the 2x is always over 1. That
Yeah, if it's a whole number, it's over 1. Okay? So another example of all this. So if I have something like this, y equals a minus 3/5 x plus 1. And I want to graph it, and I want to do it by the intercept and slope method. Okay? If I'm doing it by the intercept and slope method, let's see, 1. The first thing I do is I plot this point. Okay? My slope is negative 3/5. Okay? So this time it says go down 3.
Isn't that plus 2?
Oh, sorry, you're right. You actually got the point right now. Okay, I can just move my line. There we go. We just moved it out. Okay. All right. So now my slope is a negative 3/5. So that means go down 3 over 5. So down 3, 1, 2, 3 over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to put me there. And again, we connect.
So, it's like a lot easier to just draw a graph because it's like instructions basically.
Okay.
You don't even really have to do math.
Okay. That is math, but different type. Okay? Right? So again, and if I was going to do that by picking numbers for x this time, the the numbers I would pick to do this one is 0 is usually a good number because after all, anything times 0 is 0. And then after that, the next number I would pick for this one would be 5. If I was going to pick numbers for x. So if you have a fraction and you're picking numbers, what you want to do is you want to make x so that it's a multiple of your denominator. Because then when you do the math, you're going to end up with a nice whole number. Okay? If you do some other number, then you got to worry about, a part of a box sort of thing. Right? So whole numbers are easier to graph than fractional pieces.
Why would you want to plug in values and solve it?
Well, you can, depending on which way you like. Some people don't like the whole sort of intercept. It all depends on. Yeah. Right? All right. So let's give you one for you guys. Find the equation of the line. That passes through the points. In both point slope and slope intercept. Right? If we take a few moments, I want the equation of the line that passes through those 2 points in both point slope and slope intercept. Allergies?
Yeah. Wasn't ready for this summer.
Of course, in Chicago today, they're having a lovely spring day. Going to have a high of 36 degrees. Watched the news last night at 10 o'clock, and they showed it was snowing in Chicago. lovely spring weather.
So did we come out with a fraction after we try to find the slope?
Yeah, there's one, yeah.
Okay.
But again, like I said, if you have any fractional impairments, you need to get over them.
Why is there like 10 steps to figure this out?
Yeah.
It's a headache.
Fractions are numbers too. Okay.
So before we add it in for the m in the point slope, are we supposed to turn it into a whole number or
No, it's
leave it as a
fraction.
fraction?
Leave it as fractions, and it's a there's a fraction. And then of course, when you go to rearranging the slope intercept, then you got to be able to deal with the fraction. That part of it. So then you get to practice your fraction skills. Fractions are a part of calculus, so you need to know how to deal with them. Okay, they do show up. So fractions are numbers too. One of these days I'll try to get fractional impairment listed on the DSM-4. That way you can get treatment and claim that medical insurance. Alright. So again, it's a process. There's a word to it. Alright. Find the slope, take the numbers, plug it in to the form, the point slope form, and then take that form, rearrange it into the other. Okay? So there's a few steps involved. Okay? In terms of language. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope. Okay? So my slope, m, is going to be 18 minus 7 over 6 minus 3. And that comes out to be next thing. Pick a point. You can pick either one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Both points are on the line. Okay? So let's take the first point, which was 3, 7. This is the m. This is the x1. That is the y1. Take the numbers. Plug them in. Y minus 7 equals 11/3 x minus 3. You could have taken the other point.
But we should do the same thing in the end, right?
In the end, when you get to the slope intercept form, they will give you exactly the same equation. Okay? If you took the other point, and you could have, you would have had y minus 18 equals 11/3 x minus 6, if you took the other point. Because again, you could have picked either one. Alright? So that is point slope. Next step, rearranging. Solve for y. So now you get the algebra skills. And being able to deal with fractions. Right? So if I take this and I solve it for y, so let's rewrite it just so we can start with a new one. Question. First thing I want to do is take care of my distributive property. So y minus 7 equals 11/3 x minus that. Okay. Now, of course, 33/3, because this was a 3, this was a 3, it works out nicely, so it wasn't really all that bad as far as fraction was concerned. Because after all, what is 33 over 3? 11, right? So this will become just an 11, okay? So it wasn't even all that bad with fractions, okay? So the last step is to just take the 7 over to the other side. And for that, we just add. And we get y equals and that is my equation in the other one. Okay? So find slope. Plug in to the point slope. Take that. Rearrange it into any question on all that part? With that, let's take about a 12-minute break. So by that clock, we'll be back here at 5 up. You got to stretch.